Okay, welcome back to Armed Citizens TV. My name is Marty Hayes. I'm the president of the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network, and we're filming this today in cooperation with the Armed Citizens Educational Foundation. The topic of today's videotape will be legal concepts, flight equals guilt. And with me today is Massad Ayoob, who he's the director of the Massad Ayoob group, and doesn't need really any further introduction. Very popular on YouTube already, and we're going to take advantage of his expertise as much as we can over the next several years. So welcome, thank you, Massad. And I'll go ahead and turn this over to you.
Sure. One of the big mistakes we see made by armed citizens is they'll handle the confrontation itself perfectly and then panic and flee the scene. It's as if any thought they put into this beforehand began with the draw and ended with the last shot, and they never really thought about managing the aftermath. When people flee the scene, they trigger the concept known as flight equals guilt. And it's an ancient precept. If you look in the Bible, in Proverbs 28:1, it says, "The wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous man stands his ground as bold as a lion." Now, we're not saying that the law comes from the Bible. What we're saying is that this precept is so ancient that it literally goes back to pre-biblical times. The general public who constitute the jury pool assume that if they had acted correctly, they would stand their ground to explain themselves, particularly in a literally life or death crisis. When they find out the person has fled, that's something they do associate with guilt. The guilty criminal is the one who flees the scene. Even though you did everything right, you've now, if you have fled the scene, have created a very steep hill for your defense team to climb. Marty, you and I discussed earlier one case you were familiar with that went just that way.
Yeah, a couple years ago, I was involved in an expert witness case where the defendant, who was actually later convicted of murder, instead of sticking around to explain what happened to the cops, he decided to drive away in his girlfriend's car, leaving his girlfriend, interestingly, at the scene. But that and some other issues regarding having been drinking, and then made some statements to the police that went against his best interest, basically convicted him of murder in what I felt was a reasonably good, righteous self-defense shoot. But we couldn't undo the wrong that he had done to himself.
Oh, he had shot a man who was coming at him with a K-bar knife, right?
Well, interesting, the guy had the knife. He had his hand on the knife. The knife was in his belt on a sheath, which you and I both know that it takes just a nanosecond to get the knife out. And so that was one of the things that I came in to explain to the jury, but my explanation simply wasn't good enough. And yeah, he was coming towards him with his hand on the knife, and he had previously threatened to kill him.
Now, we've seen that same dynamic in some more recent cases. The Hokawana case in Seattle, a shooting that took place in 2017 and went to trial in 2019. Mr. and Mrs. Hokawana were ordinary people, somewhat conservative. They chose to attend a rally with a very controversial conservative speaker and found themselves embroiled in an Antifa demonstration that very quickly turned violent. Mr. Hokawana had attempted to break up a fistfight with pepper spray. A very large anarchist guy, how do we know anarchist? The big anarchist tattoo on the neck.
That's a clue.
Came toward him. Mrs. Hokawana, seeing this, saw the large man, she said, draw a knife, and she believed he was going to stab her husband to death. She drew her Glock 26 pistol and shot him. He collapsed, and the two of them fled. They later turned themselves in, but their flight had created the whole flight equals guilt thing. It wound up as a very expensive ordeal, both emotionally and financially. Attorney Stephen Wells, I thought, did a splendid job for the defense. helped by our colleague Bob Smith, who acted as consulting expert. The jury hung and could not reach a verdict, and having analyzed that, the prosecution decided to finally drop the matter. At the same time, there had been that tremendous ordeal that neither of those young people are probably ever going to fully recover from. We've seen more recently in Kenosha, Washington, the Kyle Rittenhouse shooting.
If I may interrupt, Kenosha, Wisconsin.
What did I say?
Washington.
Oh my God.
You're here in Washington.
I'm easily confused. In the Rittenhouse case, the video of the incident makes it clear that all three of the men he shot were in fact attacking him, that it was clear-cut self-defense. The video, which hopefully will save him, we're doing this video in November of 2020, shows that he raised his hands and walked rapidly toward the police, attempting to give himself up. Amidst all the chaos, the police, who did not know yet what was what, were shouting over the loudspeakers, "Get out of the street." So he simply got out of the street and probably didn't know what else to do, got in his car and drove away. The whole fled to Illinois, the subsequent extradition, the murder charge, and the enormous bail are what he and his defense team, led by attorney Lynn Wood, are dealing with now. Had he been able that evening to call in, to become the complainant, to say, "These people attacked me and I defended myself," it's clear that his situation would have been a lot better than it is. Now, you might find yourself in a situation, notice two of the three cases we've discussed have involved large numbers of antagonistic opponents, where for you to remain at the scene would literally put your life at risk. If you do have to flee, first, we are in the time of electronic communication. Get on 911, be the first to call in. Explain what it was that led to the shooting. This man attacked me, this man was coming at me trying to grab my gun, this man was clubbing me with a skateboard, this man was coming at me with a pistol, and let them know where you are. From that point on, it is no longer flight. It was escape from danger. But as soon as you have become the one who called the police, you have essentially become the victim complainant, which is a much more tenable situation for your defense team to deal with.
Thank you, Mass. That pretty much covers this individual topic. And folks, stay tuned for the next edition of Armed Citizens TV.